Video, I'm going to make this little unique project. It came out of the Saw Scandinavian Pattern book. It's very unique. I call it a tri-box. I'm not sure exactly what the creator called it. You got these 3 boxes, 2 that swivel on top of the other to make the lid, and then each one of these have a lid. This was a challenge to make. It wasn't so much to cut out, it was to construct it and make it work, make everything line up and not bind. So stay tuned. We'll look at the pattern and the materials, and at the end of the video I'll tell you what I would have done different to make it better. This was a learning experience. I'm not real crazy about the way it turned out. It works, looks okay, but I could have done a lot better. But this was a real learning experience, and it was, like I say, a challenge to construct, to get everything to line up, because you got multiple faces to line up on all those pieces. So stay tuned to look at the pattern. We'll talk about the material, and then I'll cut it out and struggle to put it together. So stay tuned. This is the pattern and the material for this little tri-box project. And this is came out of a seconds package. That's 2 1/8-inch pieces stacked together so that every time I cut these I get 2 of each. I need 4 of these, so I got two examples on there. I think that's probably ash. The only thing I'm 100% sure of, it's a domestic wood, because I bought a domestic seconds package. Anyway, there's the bottom of the main box. Here's the sides and the ends of the main box. And here's the top of the small boxes, sides and ends for that, bottom of the small boxes, and then the decorative skirting that goes around it. And then you got the little swivel arms. Now I've already drilled these. You got 4 on each side here, and the same thing, 2 on each side here. They're supposed to match up with each other. When you put these on, gives it the swivel part. I'm going to cut these with a scroll saw. I want those to be a little more exact. It's easy to get the drill off a little bit. That's a small area. But anyway, I'm going to take this to the scroll saw. As you can see, that's one big long board, like 2 feet. And I'll come in and I'm going to break it down in half before I start cutting, so I have to handle the whole thing. And then this I'll just cut out and then cut the internal parts. But I'm going to use a number 3 blade, I think, for most of this. A 5 would do it. But this is a fairly easy to cut wood, so I'm going to go kind of carefully with it. So let me get it over the scroll saw and break it down, and we'll start cutting it. I've got it all cut out. Material cut pretty nicely. I was using a number 3 blade on most of it. Now when I got to this piece, I went to a smaller blade. Those were small little holes. Plus I'd worn that one out. I went too far with that number 3. It was beginning to give me real troubles when I cut this piece out to keep it going in the correct direction. It was having trouble getting it to cut in when I wanted to turn. I should have changed it before I did. So I went ahead and went to a smaller one on this. And even then, it wanted to follow the grain of the wood on the side. I had to sand it down a little bit. I've got one problem here that I may have to recut part of it. Had a knot there in that wood. I thought I had missed it when I put the pattern on. But I'll clean that up and get the patterns off. That's my next step. I'm going to kind of sand everything, get the patterns off, sand it, and see if I can dry fit it. This is a tab and slot construction. And if you noticed when I was cutting this, these have letters in the slots, and the tab, these have a letter on them, and those tell you exactly where those slots go in relation to this. So let me do some pattern removal, some cleaning. I'll probably have to do some work on places like this to get it to fit in. It has to fit in this hole. I'll probably have to trim that a little bit and work it to make it fit through there. I've also got some 1/8" dowel that's going to make these pins here swivel on these pieces. So anyway, there's a lot of pieces to put together, some moving parts to work with. So I'm going to start sanding, removing patterns and sanding, and then if I can dry fit it, that's be the next thing we'll see. And then I'll slowly try to build it and see what I got to do to put it together. Bottom box is dry fit. It's not squeezed together perfectly yet. It's got a little bit of a twist in it, but I'll work that out. And it's sitting pretty good right now. It was kind of rocking, but that's something I'll have to deal with as I glue it. I haven't glued it. It's just a dry fit because I want to dry fit the other 2 boxes and see how they fit together before I put anything solid. I may have to make some adjustments. Now that's what I'm doing here. He's got these pattern has the tabs and the slots, and they're numbered, or rather they're lettered. They got letters so you can match them up. I'm going to refer to the pattern and get that. But my biggest problem has been that the tabs have been too long this way for the slots. So I just hold them there and get them lined up, and then I'll reach in there and mark with a pencil, and I'll just use my little blade here and just gently trim that off till it fits. And before I put it in, I get it with a chisel, and I sat down and just take one small shaving off each side, and that helps. That makes it go to kind of slant it just ever so slightly. Got to be careful with that on these because they will actually show. The ones I've done so far are all hidden, but I'll have to be a little more careful as I go up. These don't look bad, but I just want to make sure I don't get too big a gap in some places. There's going to be some gaps, but I'm going to try to keep them to a minimum. The next part of it is a little more critical because you got a lid that you got to fit. This got to slide and it's got to fit and match, and then you got these arms. They're going to go from box to box and they slide back and forth. There'll be 2 on each side of the top boxes. So anyway, I'm going to move forward. I'm going to dry fit the other 2 boxes and see if they fit the top of this box to start with before I start worrying about putting the arms on them. Yeah, that's got a little bit of a, no, it's sitting on that. Still got a slight twist in it, but I'll see if I can work that out before we get there. It's going to be a step at a time and see what I got to trim to make it fit. I've had one breakage. I've got these little pieces right here. The grain is running lengthways, and that's a real narrow spot, and I had one break right here. I've got my little container I keep those pieces in because that'll all be glued together. I'll just glue it back on, and because it'll be glued on this surface as well as the end. So hopefully I won't break another one, but I probably will before I get there. Well, I've got the first of the top 2 boxes dry fit. it's going together pretty nicely. It's a kind of a learn as you go exactly what you got to do to make things fit. This one was actually easier than the larger one, and I hope the next one's even easier still. It should be about the same. Then I'll see how once I get the other one, I can set it on top, and I can see how well these line up with the holes. If I'm going to do any major change on that, I shouldn't have to, but I'll check that out before I glue everything together, see if I need to do anything different. So let me go get the other one in the same condition as this one. Still got some cleaning up to do, and then I'll have to glue it. And it's going to be a long glue process because got multiple pieces fitting together, and you got to make sure you get everything right. And I still got to get that bottom box. It's a little bit of a twist in it. May have to adjust something somewhere to make sure that I get it straight. So I'll work on the next box, and I'll start gluing it together after I check the arms to make sure they're okay. And won't be long, we'll see if it works. So with a lot of adjustments and sanding, and still probably got a little more to do to get it just exactly perfect, I've got it finished. I'm going to call it finished for now. It needs a little alignment, but this was a first time I ever tried anything like this. It's kind of a unique thing. So anyway, I'm going to call it good for now. I may revisit this. I do know that if I ever do this again, I'll be either making it out of plywood. I'm not crazy about having bare edges of plywood, or I would run the grain in different directions, because you got some really fragile points right here. It'd be real easy to snap those lids off because the grain's running this way, and you just got a little peg that goes in these holes here. And the same thing down here on the sides. You got these, all these corners have a piece on them that it could easily break off. And I just always run the grain the length of the panels, and I wasn't paying attention to that. I should have run the grain the other way, and I wouldn't have had as much problem with that. But I made it through. I glued some of these pieces back on. Some of these are glued on because they broke off. These right here, I think both of these, and another one of these on the other side. I'm also going to try to develop a technique whereby when you have this tab and slot, that I make sure I cut the slots a little better and a little more precise. That's something I'm going to work on. I may do a video on that if I figure out something that really works for me. Scroll saw is not a table saw. It just doesn't cut. It cuts as straight as you make it cut. And I was using a number 2 and a number 3 blade on this, and the lines on the pattern was so thick you couldn't really tell where you were sometimes. It was easy to be off enough to make them not exactly where they should be. But anyway, I'm going to call that good. I hope you like that. It's kind of a unique thing. If you like it, hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed, hit the subscribe button. I really like boxes. It's the first box I've done in a while. I saw this and I wanted to try it. It was a challenge to construct it, but I learned a lot, and I think I can make it go together better the next time if I try to do it again. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.